You ever notice how some people come into your life like a storm in a suit? Smile on the outside, poison on the inside. They laugh with you, eat with you, tell you they're for you, but behind your back. Oh, behind your back they're building exits, burning bridges with gasoline dipped in charm. And you keep them around because it's easier to explain betrayal than to sit alone at the table. Funny, isn't it? How we cling to the very hands that are tightening the noose. They smile, they nod, they clap when you win, but only just enough. Not too loud, not too proud, because deep down your rise makes their stomach turn. You think they're friends, family, lovers, whatever you labeled them as, but labels are just stickers. Easy to peel off when the truth starts leaking through the seams. And the truth, some people never showed up for you, they showed up for what being around you gave them. A stage, a mirror, a seat near the fire, not because they liked the warmth, but because they wanted to make sure they could control it. People like that, they don't carry red flags. No, they carry charm. Compliments laced in competition. Advice disguised as sabotage. Support that only shows up when you're bleeding, not when you're building. And the cruel joke? You never see it coming, because they don't knock down the door. They move in quietly, take their shoes off, and sit at the table like they belong there. Meanwhile, they're watching, measuring, calculating, waiting for you to need them just enough to forget who you were before they rushed. And you start to shrink a little, just a little. You dull your shine so it doesn't blind them. You second, guess your wins so they don't feel like losses. You laugh when they make backhanded comments, brush off the gut feeling that says, this isn't love, this is violence. But you keep them around, because it's familiar, because the mind prefers predictable pain over unfamiliar peace. So you convince yourself they care. You ignore the exhaustion that only hits after you've seen them, the heaviness that follows every conversation, that quiet sense of being observed, judged, measured like a project, not a person. See, some people aren't here to walk with you, they're here to weigh you down, to study you, mirror you, mimic just enough of your rhythm so you don't notice they're out of sync. But it's all surface. Empty applause, hollow presence. The kind of connection that dries up the second you ask for real support. The minute you stop being useful, they start disappearing. Not loud, not angry, just absent, ghosts in daylight. And you start blaming yourself as if your healing somehow pushed them away, when really it just revealed them. Because healing has a way of burning through disguises. The moment you start choosing yourself, you start seeing who never really chose you. Not truly, not fully. They liked the version of you that needed saving, the one that doubted, the one that made them feel stronger, wiser, needed. But the moment you start standing taller, the moment your boundaries get sharper, they get uncomfortable. They call you distant, different, cold. Because to someone who benefited from your smallness, your growth looks like betrayal. And that's when it hits you. They weren't loyal, they were entertained. You were their favorite show until the plot changed. And when it did, they lost interest. Because they weren't connected to your soul, they were connected to your struggle. And when the struggle started fading, so did they. You see, a real one doesn't get intimidated by your healing. They clap louder, they carry water while you climb. But a fake, a distraction in disguise, they get quiet, or worse, they get clever. They start sowing doubt. You've changed, you're acting different, you're not the same anymore. Of course you're not. That was the whole point. But they twist it, make it feel like growth is guilt, like elevation is ego, like boundaries are betrayal. Because if you start thinking for yourself, if you stop needing their approval, they lose their power, and they can't have that. So they play the victim, paint you as the villain, spin the story so they can keep their audience. But here's the thing about masks, they eventually slip, especially when the lights come on. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You start replaying conversations, remembering the tone, the looks, the little digs they swore were jokes. And suddenly it all adds up. Every delay, every doubt, every time you felt drained but didn't know why. It was them, sitting at your table with a fork, not to eat with you, but to pick at what you built, to feed off what you created. And all the while you thought they were breaking bread with you. Funny, isn't it? How people think losing someone is always a bad thing. Like every exit is a tragedy. Like every goodbye deserves a mourning. But not all departures are disasters. Some are instructions. Some are escape plans. And some are gifts in ugly wrapping. You ever try carrying dead weight uphill? Smiling through tension, pretending not to notice how heavy it's gotten, acting like you're not being dragged backwards by something or should have dropped a long time ago. But you didn't. Because you were loyal, or scared, or both. You told yourself they'd grow with you, that they'd see what you see, feel what you feel, that one day they'd catch up. But deep down you knew they weren't built for where you're headed. They were fine for the waiting room, not the destination. But you kept them anyway, out of guilt, out of hope. Because the idea of leaving someone behind felt crueler than slowly dying beside them. So you stayed, you shrunk, you paused your journey just to make sure they didn't feel left behind. And they didn't thank you for it, they expected it. That's the twist. You bend, they lean. You break, they rest. You cry, they sleep. And still you protect them. Speak well of them. Post pictures. Celebrate connections that only look healthy from far away, but up close. They're built on eggshells, on silence, on compromise disguised as love. You weren't growing together, you were growing quieter, smaller, nicer. Because if you made too much noise, they'd leave, or worse, they'd punish you with distance, mood swings, subtle little power plays you couldn't quite explain to anyone without sounding crazy. So you kept your mouth shut and hoped it would pass. But now something's shifting. Not loud, not sudden, just different. You're starting to feel things again, starting to see clearer, starting to want more. Not more drama, not more noise, just more peace, more clarity, more alignment. And that's dangerous, because when your soul starts waking up, everything fake around you starts shaking. People who could control the sleeping version of you, they panic when the real one shows up. They feel the distance, the disinterest, and they act fast, with guilt trips, with fake concern, with you've changed speeches they rehearsed in their head like a sad little play. But what they won't tell you is this: your growth offends them, not because you hurt them, but because you exposed their lack of evolution. You became a mirror, and they don't like what they see. They see themselves still stuck, still spinning, still making excuses. Why you're moving, quietly, slowly, but forward, and now they feel left behind, so they try to pull you back. Not with chains, with nostalgia, with remember when, with you owe me. But you don't. You never did. What you gave was love. What they gave was comfort that turned into control. And now, God, or whatever name you whisper into the dark when life gets too heavy, is stepping in. Not with lightning, not with fire, with removal, with silence, with disconnection. And at first it hurts. Feels like rejection. Feels like you're being punished. But look closer. What if it's not punishment? What if it's preparation? What if what feels like a loss, like a lapse, was actually clearance? Making space for what you prayed for but weren't ready to hold. People forget that sometimes the answer comes dressed as a door slamming shut. And it doesn't always come with closure or explanation. Just distance, emptiness, change. And the joke, the real cosmic laugh. Half the people crying over someone leaving don't even like them anymore. They miss the routine. The version of themselves that was easier to manage. But if they're honest, if they dig deep, they know that person was a lesson, not a lifetime. They were a season, not a soulmate. And keeping them around would have been the real betrayal. Not to them, to yourself. Because if your peace costs you your potential, it's not peace, it's prison. But people don't like change, even when it saves them. They'd rather suffer predictably than heal unpredictably. They'd rather keep what's killing them than risk stepping into the unknown. So when God starts removing people, they panic, they beg, they chase. But what if the removal is the blessing? What if the silence is the protection? What if the ending you're crying over is the answer you've been waiting for, just not wrapped in the colors you expected? You ever walk into a room and feel the air change, but no one said a word? That kind of silence isn't peace, it's performance. The kind where smiles stretch a little too wide, eyes shift a little too fast, and you suddenly become hyper-aware of your own presence, like your energy walked in 10 seconds before your body, and they didn't like the way it looked. And yet somehow they all act normal, friendly, supportive even. But that's the trick. The knife never shows itself until it's already between your ribs. People talk. That's what they do. Whisper when you're not looking, nod when you walk by, and pretend the concern they have for you is genuine when really they're collecting stories, not offering support. And the best part, they think you don't know. They think you're too distracted, too kind, too loyal to catch the stench of betrayal buried under all their fake concern. But your gut knows, your spirit knows, it always knows. That twitch in your chest when they say your name with sugar-coated venom, that pause before you respond because something just doesn't feel right. It's all been trying to warn you. See, most people don't wear masks, they wear mirrors. They reflect back exactly what you want to see. Confidence, loyalty, love. But if you look close enough, real close, you'll see the cracks. Little moments, slips. Hesitations, like when you tell them good news and their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Or when you're struggling and they suddenly get busy. Or worse, when they celebrate your pain in private, masking it with pity in public. And you keep calling them friend, family, ride or die, whatever name helps you ignore the gig truth. But that's where it gets dark. Because you think God's not watching. You think he's letting it slide. That he's asleep at the wheel while you get played in your own house. But what if he's not? What if he's collecting the footage, quietly, patiently, letting them dig their own grave while you sit in silence wondering why you feel like the outsider in rooms you used to light up? What if God didn't let you hear what they said because he didn't want you to retaliate, he wanted you to rise? What if the betrayal wasn't to break you but to wake you? That kind of exposure doesn't come with a neon sign. No dramatic confrontation. No shouting match, just moments, cold ones, quiet ones. Eyes that don't look at you the same. Energy that flickers when you walk in. And then one day something shifts, you're not invited, you're not mentioned. You're not even missed. And it stings, sure. But then comes the clarity. The weight lifts. The silence feels cleaner. The air tastes better. Because even though they were smiling, even though they were clapping, they were caging you, dimming you, dressing their jealousy as jokes and their bitterness as boundaries. They prayed for your downfall in whispers, in sarcasm, in silence. They didn't want you to die, they just didn't want you to fly. And that's worse. Because the ones who want to see you fail while pretending to love you, they're more dangerous than your enemies. At least enemies are honest. But these ones, they loved you with conditions. They supported you with expiration dates. They hugged you while hoping you'd trip. And now they're gone, or fading. And you keep asking why. What did I do? Where did it go wrong? But maybe it didn't go wrong. Maybe it's finally going right. Sometimes God removes people you had no strength to walk away from. Not because he's cruel, but because he heard conversations you weren't supposed to, saw envy you weren't strong enough to confront, witnessed betrayal you would have excused if he showed you too soon. So instead, he lets them slip, quietly, no drama, no explosions, just distance, disinterest, disconnection. And you call it a curse, a loss, a heartbreak. But what if it's none of that? What if it's the answer to a prayer you whispered on your worst night? when you begged for peace but didn't know what peace really required. You think healing is hugs and closure. Nah, healing is exposure and exits. Healing is God saying, I saw what you didn't, and I did what you wouldn't. Not to hurt you, to free you. But freedom feels like loneliness at first. Like silence, like loss. Until you realize the room is quieter now because the snakes have left. It's a strange thing, growth. Everybody talks about it like it's this beautiful process, like flowers blooming, butterflies flying, sun shining through the clouds. But nobody talks about how ugly it is. Nobody tells you that growth feels like losing your mind some days, like ripping off skin that doesn't fit anymore. Like waking up one day and realizing the people you once trusted can't come with you, not because they're bad, but because they're comfortable. And comfort doesn't move, it stays, it clings, it wraps itself around you and whispers, don't go. But something inside you itches, burns, that quiet little voice that used to whisper. It's screaming now. You're not meant to stay here. And the moment you start listening, everything starts shaking. The room doesn't feel right anymore. The conversations that used to entertain you now drain you. The validation that once fueled you doesn't hit the same. You laugh, but it feels forced. You agree, but your gut turns. Because something inside you knows this version of you is done. And that scares people. They liked you broken. They liked you apologizing for existing. For being too loud, too ambitious, too different. They liked you small, predictable, easy to handle. But now you're outgrowing their expectations. You're shedding, molting, becoming something that doesn't fit inside their boxes anymore. And they don't like that. Oh no, they won't say it, but they'll show it. In their silence, in their passive little jabs, in the way they start calling you too much, too distant, too full of yourself. But what they're really saying is, you're not who we could control anymore. And that's the cost of evolution. You don't just lose people. You lose illusions. You lose the stories you told yourself to make their presence make sense. You lose the version of you that needed their approval to feel alive. You lose the comfort of fitting in, just to gain the chaos of becoming real. You start saying no when you used to smile and nod. You start walking away from conversations that leave you hollow. You stop explaining yourself, not because you don't care, but because your peace is louder than their confusion. And that peace, it doesn't come with applause, it comes with solitude. With a lot of nights where it's just you and your thoughts. No crowd, no echo chamber, just silence, and in that silence you meet yourself. The real you. Not the version you perform to keep the peace. The one that's messy, wild, and full of fire. The one you buried to keep others comfortable. That version doesn't beg to be liked. Doesn't wait to be picked. It just is. And once it shows up, there's no going back. But don't expect them to understand. They won't. They'll call it arrogance, rebellion, ego. Because to them, your evolution feels like a threat. Like a betrayal. Because they're still sitting in places you outgrew. Still clapping for masks you stopped wearing. And here you are, peeling layers off like old paint. Realizing that you never needed to be fixed, just freed. But freedom has a price. And the first payment. Losing the ones who only knew how to love the version of you that played small. You start noticing it everywhere. In their eyes. In their tone. In how they used to show up and now they don't. Or worse, they do, but it's empty. Hollow. Obligatory. You can feel it. Like a performance where everyone forgot their lines but still kept acting. And you're done pretending. You're done dressing wounds with jokes and laughing through betrayal. You're done being the soft place for sharp people. You're done editing your soul for a room full of critics who wouldn't know real if it stared them in the face. So you stop explaining. You stop chasing. You stop reaching back into fires that already burned you once. And it's not bitterness, it's clarity. You finally see that being loyal to your growth will always make you disloyal to their comfort. And that's the point. You weren't born to keep everyone happy. You weren't built to blend in. You weren't made to shrink so others could feel tall. Growth doesn't ask for permission. It kicks down doors, it breaks cycles, it rips you out of fake friendships, tired roles, and recycled dreams. And the thing is, once you start growing, you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel the pull. You can't unknow what alignment feels like. So even when it hurts, even when it hurts, even when you keep going. Not because it's easy, not because you're brave, but because staying small started to feel like dying in slow motion. Funny how people scream for truth, beg for light, cry for change until it actually shows up. Then suddenly it's too much, too fast, too uncomfortable. Because nobody really wants the truth. They want the version of it that still lets them sleep at night, the one that doesn't wreck the mirror or challenge the roar. And yet there it is. That quiet little moment when the mask slips, the lights flicker, and everything they tried to hide starts bubbling to the surface. Not loud, not dramatic, just undeniable. See, life doesn't always come at you with a bang. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it removes, and you sit. They're wondering what's happening, why certain people are pulling away, why doors that used to fly open are suddenly locked tight, why the energy around you feels colder even though you're doing everything right. But maybe that's the joke. Maybe right isn't right anymore. Maybe you outgrew the version of yourself that needed to be accepted by rooms that were never built for your soul. You ever notice how some people only clap when you're struggling? How they loved you more when you were broken, confused, digestible? That's because your chaos made them feel in control. Your doubt gave them power. You were manageable, predictable. But now you're starting to believe, not in them, not in approval, in you. And that's a problem for people who built their confidence on your confusion. That's a threat to those who measured their worth by being one step ahead of your pain. So they panic. Not all at once, not openly. No, they're clever. They withdraw subtly. They get quieter, colder, more passive. They start speaking in coded language, hoping you'll pick up on the hint and dim yourself again. And if that doesn't work, they try guilt. They try memory. They try to remind you of who you were, hoping to drag you back into a version of yourself that served them better. Because who you're becoming, that person doesn't need their permission anymore. That person doesn't seek applause. That person is dangerous to the roles they've played, to the lies they've told, to the masks they wear. But you're starting to see it now, starting to feel it, the distance, the disconnection, the spiritual audit. It's not random, it's not punishment, it's precision. A quiet little cleansing, a divine separation. And it hurts, doesn't it? Losing people who said they'd never leave, watching the familiar turn into strangers, feeling that cold wind of silence from someone who once swore they'd always show up. But here's the twisted part, it's not betrayal, it's alignment. And alignment doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. They'll say you've changed, that you're acting different. But of course you are. Healing doesn't come with a personality freeze. Growth doesn't respect nostalgia. Just because you laughed with someone in the past doesn't mean you owe them your future. Just because they saw you struggle doesn't mean they deserve a front row seat to your success. This isn't revenge. This isn't bitterness, it's boundaries, and boundaries make cowards uncomfortable, especially the ones who only knew how to love you through your wounds. So you pull back. You stop explaining. You stop chasing conversations that feel forced. You stop making